I see it going. I think this is very important. They say that there's no possibility of them doing anything about this for at least 4 months. Can you comprehend a doubling what's already been done in the way of disaster taking place within the next 4 months' time? They say in order to angle drill down to attempt to put a nuclear device, if they even are willing to do it, because, and they say in order to do that, there's 4 months involved in doing it, and they haven't even started yet. So this means that you're going to have a continued process of what's taking place right now for at least that period of time. And then, as my sources originally told me, scared. I mean, I could actually hear the fear in their voices when they said the only alternative is a nuclear device. And they said, but we don't like that idea. I said, why? They said, because if we fracture this strata that has such tremendous pressure, then he said there will never be any stopping of it. And he said, we don't even want to think about that. Well, neither do I. To never stop this oil from coming out into the Gulf of Mexico, I mean, this is unthinkable. It would be a disaster such as the world could never even imagine. All right, secondly, there is no need for any of this. None of this should have ever happened. We have on our own soil in North and South Dakota and Montana the Bakken oil reserve. It has already been put in the congressional record. The congressmen know it's there. And the only thing that is keeping this oil on the land, not in the Gulf of Mexico or in the waters, from being produced, Congress won't let them. They're crazy. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's 8 times as much oil as Saudi Arabia, 18 times as much oil as Iraq, 21 times as much oil as Kuwait, 22 times as much oil as Iran, 500 times as much oil as Yemen. We have it on our own soil, on the land. They could begin drilling any day they want to. It is not a super deep well, and they know that we have a supply, and we didn't have to do this in the Gulf of Mexico, Alex.
Well, those are really pertinent points that you make, Lindsey, and it's the type of thing that the media loves because it just goes on every day with new facets and new information. It becomes a soap opera, but it's a real-world soap opera destroying sea turtles and dolphins and fisheries and fishermen's lives, and the people involved in the cleanups are getting sick from the dispersants and the oil. You got volcanoes going off in Iceland, shutting down air traffic, and you've got depression and countries falling and this quickening, accelerating. Very, very bizarre to see this unfolding. Let's hurry now through your calls. I want to thank everybody for calling in and for holding. Brian in Ohio, welcome. You're on the air.
How's it going, Alex?
Good, sir. Go ahead.
Alex mentioned a few months ago that the elite tell their story through movies. And supposedly, in the movie The Knowing, that there was a mention of an oil spill or an explosion April 20th. Well, if there's any correlation with that.
Well, there's a lot of movies and a lot of TV shows where the globalists do predictive programming where they throw in your face what they're planning to do later as kind of an inside joke to themselves as a calling card, but also to subconsciously prepare you for it to happen. And there's hundreds of examples, but the best example is the fact that 6 months before 9/11, the Lone Gunman, a spinoff of the X-Files, the CIA contacted Chris Carter and others, and I was told this by Dean Haglund, star of the show. He was so concerned about this, he traveled to Austin to speak with me, said the CIA planted those storylines on them. And he went on to say that, well, I mean, you watch the show, the government hijacks a jet to fly it in the World Trade Center to blame it on Afghanistan, and the government uses a drill, a terror drill, to make the rest of the government stand down, and that's actually what happened on 9/11. And so there is something to that. I appreciate your call. Anything else, Brian?
Man, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments on that, Lindsey? Because you say your source, who's a former oil company executive, told you it was an accident. You know, a globalist a lot of times will tell people the truth for a long time. Did we lose Lindsey or we lose Brian? Okay, Lindsey, you there? Do we have Lindsey?
I I didn't hear the last of that because of a dial tone.
Yeah, I think we have a phone system hiccup there, but we'll work on that. I'm not saying this is what happened, but I mean, I know who your oil executive contact is. You've gotten good intel in the past. It's turned out to be very accurate. You know, you said a year before when oil was $60 a barrel that it was going to be $150, and that happened. And, of course, Bilderberg Group was saying similar things. And so these elites go in circles, you know, the same circles. But a lot of times these globalists will give people good info to then later at a key time give them true info, but mix some lies in to put out disinfo. I mean, how does your oil company executive friend know that this wasn't staged?
87-year-old man has cancer, facing the grave. He has never told me anything that was wrong over the past 35 years. I have no choice to believe what he's saying right now. Atlantic Richfield, former, retired now, saying the same thing. There's one thing I learned, Alex, when I lived with the elite, and that is they do have a moral code. It's quite different than the moral code that you and I have. And one of the facets of their moral code is that they must tell the world everything they're going to do before they do it. Katrina, yeah, they had an oil storm just a few weeks before it and told you everything they were going to do. But the thing is, the average person does not know how to interpret what these people are saying. But they do tell you ahead of time what they're going to do. What happened in the Gulf, there was no ahead of time on this because this happened by accident. But they are going to use this now to accomplish their 2012 timeline.
All right, let's go back to your phone calls here. Let's talk with Jerry in Indiana. You're on the air, Jerry.
Oh, Alex, Prison Planet member for many years and bought 2 of your videos this week.
Thank you. Couldn't do it without you.
And we need you more than ever, Alex Jones, right now. I'm buying the videos, getting them copied. Lindsey-Williams, I bought 2 of yours. I can't thank you enough for what you're doing, exposing this fraud and these elitists. My question is for Lindsey. Lindsey, the worst case scenario, I know this is going to be hard to answer, but if this, this oil in the Gulf, if it meets up with a major hurricane, and Alex, chime in here too, how far north will this oil go? I mean, is there any...
Well, I'm not a hydrologist, Jerry, and I'm not a meteorologist, but they've said that a hurricane could push this oil 20, 30 miles inland, up the estuaries, back up the rivers, and that a lot of it could be picked up in the storms and dumped in on the land. The good news is the oil is biodegradable. It does have some toxins in it, but there's all these millions of gallons of super toxic dispersant in it. It's going to be very destructive. Jerry, it sounded like your phone was fading out. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Lindsey-Williams, comment on what Jerry was just saying.
Well, it's not the oil itself that has this kind of reddish tint to it that's most concerning to me. It's what else is coming out of that well in the way of gases, toxic gases.
Well, that's right. They keep saying it's oil, but I mean, oil's
north all the way up to New York and all the way up the east coast of the United States of America.
Well, that's right, because it's not just what can be blown in by a hurricane. They admit that the tidal forces, go out of the Gulf around Florida in those channels and travels up the East Coast.
Yes, that's true. In fact, it's going to devastate the tourist trade. A talk show host the other day said that a guest had canceled, would not be on his talk show that night. I said, why? He said she's a tourist travel agent on the Keys. When they found out she was going to be on his show, they threatened her and told her not to appear under any circumstances. She called and canceled out as a guest. This thing is getting to the point that it's going to be, I don't know what the overall effect will have, but it's not going to be pretty.